You'll have to watch your step.
Oh my God. Dispatch 103, we need CSI and a supervisor immediately. Don't touch anything!
That's your DNA. And the cash you took off him. You want to keep preaching or you want to talk?
I serve the Lord.
Cut it out. It's over. We got you. Fine. You want it?
It was a blur, red and silver, just spinning in my head. I took the fork. His fork.
She was the glue of our family. And she died because she chose to be kind to a stranger. That stranger was you.
You repaid kindness with extreme brutality. The court hereby sentences you.
This reconstruction draws from how these incidents are typically documented, reviewed, and investigated after the fact. Names and identifying details have been altered. On the night of July 21st, 2018, in the quiet community of Dubuque, Iowa, a routine welfare check transformed into one of the most chilling homicide investigations in the city's history. The victim was 53-year-old Michelle Kenny, known to everyone on Iowa Street simply as Auntie. She was the woman who decorated her windows for every holiday, the neighbor who helped with groceries, and the soul of the apartment complex. But as the body camera footage from Officer Sam Cooper, a 5-year veteran with a clean record, shows, the person who entered that kitchen didn't see a neighbor. They saw a monster's playground. Michelle had been stabbed 41 times. The autopsy would later reveal a level of overkill that usually suggests a deeply personal vendetta. Her face had been targeted with blunt force trauma, and in a detail that seasoned detectives called uniquely disturbing, a common kitchen fork had been used as a secondary weapon, leaving 4-pronged puncture marks across her torso. This split-second discovery is about to set off a chain reaction that will lead detectives through a maze of ex-boyfriends, transient roommates, and a chilling encounter with a man who was already in police custody for a different crime, while Michelle's body was still warm. Before we dive into the evidence that eventually broke this killer, where are you watching from today? Let us know in the comments. We believe in transparency and holding the system accountable. If you do too, hit that subscribe button and join our community of truth seekers. The initial investigation focused on the circle of deception. Detectives Nick Schlosser and Brendan Welsh immediately identified 2 primary suspects. First was Tom, a former boyfriend with a documented history of alcohol-fueled violence. According to Michelle's sister Helen, Tom had choked her and raised her up in the air during previous disputes. Then there was Drew, a 30-something transient who Michelle had recently kicked out. The neighbors reported a heated argument on the sidewalk just 24 hours before the body was found. But as CSI processed the scene, they found a pattern interrupt: a pair of men's shorts left in the living room and a blood-stained bra in the kitchen. The DNA results were days away, but the city's CCTV network was about to provide a revelation that neither Tom nor Drew could explain. Frame by frame, investigators began tracking a ghost figure. A man, not yet identified, was seen on a traffic camera at 6:14 p.m. walking with Michelle. He was carrying her grocery bags. He looked helpful. He looked like a good Samaritan. 10 minutes later, the same camera captures the man leaving. But he's not the same. He's changed his clothes. He's wearing Michelle's jeans. And he's walking straight toward a local bar on Central Avenue. The detectives are about to realize that the man they are looking for isn't hiding in the shadows. He's already sitting in a jail cell blocks away for public intoxication. But how do you link a simple drunk and disorderly arrest to a 41 stab wound homicide when the suspect claims he was just helping an old lady with her bags? In your opinion, should a history of domestic violence, like Tom's, automatically make someone the prime suspect? Or does that often blind investigators to the real killer? Stay tuned as we go inside the interrogation room where a $50 secret and a fit of rage will finally bring the truth to light. And it's more senseless than anyone imagined. The transition from a person of interest to a prime suspect happened at exactly 10:14 a.m. the following morning. Detectives Schlosser and Welsh were staring at two different sets of documents. One was the arrest log for Gary James, a 46-year-old transient who had been picked up at a bar on Central Avenue for public intoxication and threatening behavior toward female patrons. The other was a formal statement from a woman named Pam, who had called the police just 24 hours prior. According to the official incident report, witness Pam stated that Gary James had been staying with her since July 7th. She reported he would stay up all night talking to Jesus and pacing the floor. When she asked him to leave, she discovered her 10-inch butcher knife was missing from the kitchen drawer. When detectives compared the time of Pam's 911 call to the time Michelle Kenny was last seen on CCTV, the window of opportunity slammed shut on Gary James. He wasn't just a drunk in a bar, he was a man armed with a stolen weapon, wandering the streets in a state of escalating mental instability. Detectives first brought in Tom, the ex-boyfriend. The room was thick with the smell of stale cigarettes and desperation. Detective Schlosser said to Tom, "Her family says you've been violent before. They say you choked her. They say she was terrified of you." Tom replied and said he loved that woman. "Yeah, we fought. I drink too much, I know that. But I'd never... Look at me, man. I'm heartbroken." Detective Welsh responded, "Then why did your neighbors hear a man's voice screaming at her on the sidewalk Sunday night?" Tom replied in a strong voice, "That wasn't me. I haven't been near Iowa Street in weeks. Check the hot dog stand where I work. I was there." Tom's alibi held up. So did Drew's. The investigation was forced back to the ghost figure on the CCTV. The footage was grainy, but the movement was unmistakable. At 6:25 p.m., the man exits Michelle's apartment. He is no longer wearing the light-colored shorts seen earlier. He is wearing dark denim jeans that looked suspiciously tight, as if they belonged to a woman inside the interrogation room. Gary James sat slumped, still coming down from his high. He was defiant, his voice a raspy growl captured on the precinct's recording system. Gary James started talking. "I don't know, Michelle. I told you I was at the bar. I got arrested at the bar. How could I be two places at once?" Detective Schlosser then said, "We're not saying you were in two places at once, Gary. We're saying you stopped at Michelle's before you went to the bar. We have you on camera carrying her groceries." Gary James replied, "Maybe I helped a lady. I'm a nice guy. I help people. Doesn't mean I hurt her." Detective Welsh further interrogated, "Then explain the jeans, Gary. You were arrested in dark denim. But when you walked into that apartment with those groceries, you were wearing shorts. Where are the shorts, Gary?" James went silent. His eyes darted to the corner of the room. He didn't know that blocks away, CSI had just finished swabbing the bathroom sink in Michelle's apartment. They found a diluted blood pattern, suggesting the killer had washed his hands and arms before changing his clothes. Gary James is playing a high-stakes game of catch me if you can, unaware that his own clothing is a walking crime scene. In many states, public intoxication is a minor fine, but here, It was the only thing keeping a murderer off the streets while DNA was processed. Do you think police should have the right to hold someone for minor charges indefinitely if they are a lead in a capital crime? Or does that violate the Fourth Amendment? The tension reached a breaking point when Detective Schlosser placed a high-resolution photo on the table. It wasn't a photo of Michelle. It was a photo of the $50 bill found in Gary's pocket during his arrest. Detective Schlosser asked Gary, saying to him, "You haven't had a job in 6 months. Pam said you were broke. Where did you get the cash for those drinks at the bar?" Gary James responded to him, "I found it. People drop money all the time." Detective Welsh was not convinced and further interrogated. "You found exactly $53? The exact amount Michelle Kenny withdrew from the ATM an hour before she died?" Gary James leaned forward, his face inches from the detective's. "You can't prove nothing. You got pictures of me walking. You don't got pictures of what happened inside?" He was right. There were no cameras inside the apartment. But there was something Gary had forgotten. In his fit of rage, he had left behind a singular microscopic piece of himself that was currently being accelerated through a thermal cycler at the state crime lab. The detectives receive a phone call. It's the lab. The DNA on the men's shorts found in Michelle's living room is a match for Gary James. But more importantly, the blood on the inside of the waistband belongs to Michelle. The nice guy who helped with the groceries was about to face the ultimate transformation. The atmosphere in the Dubuque Police Department changed at 8:14 a.m. on Wednesday. The waiting game was over. The state crime lab had fast-tracked the results, and the evidence was an absolute hammer. The DNA profile from the men's shorts left in the victim's living room wasn't just a partial match. It was a 1 in a billion hit for Gary James. Even more devastating was the transfer evidence. Forensic technicians discovered a high-velocity blood spatter pattern on the sunglasses Gary had been wearing in the CCTV footage. Sunglasses he had mistakenly left on Michelle's kitchen counter. The interrogation shifts. Detectives Schlosser and Welsh entered the interrogation room with a new energy. The polite questioning phase was dead. Detective Schlosser said to Gary, "We're done talking about groceries. We're done talking about the bar. We just got the lab results back." Gary James, "You judge," replied the detective with a straight voice. "I don't care about no lab. I told you I'm a man of God. Jesus knows my heart." Detective Welsh further interrogated. "Well, Jesus might know your heart, Gary, but the crime lab knows your DNA. Your shorts were in her living room. Her blood is on your clothes. Your glasses were covered in her DNA, sitting right next to the stove where you killed her." Gary James, stuttering, said, I must have dropped them. I told you I helped her. Maybe she was bleeding when I was helping her." Detective Schlosser then countered, 41 times, Gary. She was bleeding 41 times because you were helping her. You used a butcher knife you stole from Pam, and when that wasn't enough, you grabbed a fork. And now that mistake is costing him everything. This was the moment of no return. Because Gary had crossed state lines during his recent travels, and the nature of the crime involved such extreme depravity of heart, federal oversight, agencies began monitoring the case. The realization hit Gary like a physical blow. This wasn't just a local scuffle that would get him a few months in county. He was looking at a life without parole sentence in a maximum security facility. The authenticity illusion of Gary's innocence vanished. He stopped leaning forward aggressively and slumped into his chair. The man of God persona cracked. revealing the raw, volatile rage that the neighbor Pam had described. Gary James said flatly, "She shouldn't have been talking to me like that. People always putting me out, treating me like I'm nothing." Detective Welsh, sensing the tone behind his voice, replied, "Who put you out, Gary? Not Michelle. She was the one who let you in." Gary James shouted back at him. He said, Pam put me out. I was walking around all day with nowhere to go. My head was hot. I was in a rage, man, a rage." Gary James finally admitted the unthinkable. Michelle Kenny was a proxy victim. She had done nothing wrong. She'd offered him a moment of kindness by letting him carry her bags. But inside that apartment, Gary didn't see Michelle. He saw every person who had ever rejected him. He described the movie playing in his head, a blur of red and silver. He admitted to taking the $53 from her purse, washing his arms in her sink, and putting on her own jeans because his shorts were too heavy with wetness to wear. Just as Gary was finishing his confession, he looked up at the camera in the corner of the room with a chilling, vacant expression and said, "I don't think Jesus likes me no more, but I did it. I'm ready to do my time." But the detectives knew a confession wasn't enough for a conviction of this magnitude. They needed the murder weapon. Gary claimed he threw it in a bin, but the trash had already been collected. With Gary's confession on tape, the investigation pivoted to the physical evidence needed to secure a first-degree murder conviction. Gary had admitted to using the stolen butcher knife and a kitchen fork, but the knife was still missing. Detectives coordinated with the Dubuque Public Works Department. They tracked the garbage truck routes from Iowa Street to the regional landfill. For 3 days, investigators in hazmat suits sifted through tons of refuse. It was a needle in a haystack made of filth, Detective Welsh noted in a later deposition. But we knew, if we didn't find that knife, a high-priced defense attorney could argue the confession was coerced or that Gary was just confused due to his intoxication. On the 4th day, they found it. A 10-inch butcher knife, wrapped in a blood-soaked rag, buried deep within a trash bag that also contained a receipt from the bar where Gary was arrested. As the legal proceedings moved toward a grand jury, the emotional weight of Gary's fit of rage began to crush those who loved Michelle. During the preliminary hearings, Michelle's sister Judith provided a victim impact statement that silenced the courtroom. Michelle wasn't just auntie to the neighbors. She was the glue of our family. She was 53 years old and she died in the dark on a kitchen floor because she decided to be kind to a man who looked like he needed help. He didn't just kill her. He stole our peace. He stole our ability to trust a stranger. The community of Dubuque was equally devastated. A candlelight vigil was held outside the Iowa Street apartments. Neighbors placed 41 white roses on the sidewalk, one for every wound Gary had inflicted. Gary James's defense team attempted to file a motion to suppress the confession, claiming he was too intoxicated to waive his Miranda rights. However, the prosecution fired back with expert testimony from a forensic toxicologist. While Mr. James had a high blood alcohol content at the time of his arrest, the CCTV footage and his subsequent behavior in the interrogation room show a man capable of complex tasks, specifically cleaning a crime scene, changing his clothes, and navigating a city to find a bar. His actions were purposeful, not accidental. The instant karma hit Gary in the form of his bank account and his freedom. Because he was a transient with no assets, he was assigned a public defender. but the civil implications were mounting. The estate of Michelle Kenny filed a wrongful death suit, ensuring that if Gary ever came into money, even through a book deal or inheritance, it would be seized immediately. The defense argued that Gary James suffered from a diminished capacity due to his sudden rage and intoxication. Do you believe that losing your temper should ever be a valid legal defense to reduce a murder charge to manslaughter, or is that just an excuse for monsters? The final charges. The district attorney didn't hold back. Gary James was charged with first-degree murder, carrying a mandatory life sentence, first-degree robbery for the $53 stolen from her purse, theft for the stolen knife from Pam's kitchen. The federal monitors stayed involved, ensuring that the civil rights of the victim were upheld throughout the process. Gary's life in the general population of the county jail was already becoming a nightmare. Word had spread about the fork killer, and even other inmates found his crimes too stomach-turning to tolerate. As the trial date approached, Gary James made a shocking decision that would bypass a jury altogether. He requested a private meeting with the DA, claiming he had one more thing to say about why he chose Michelle. The final confrontation didn't happen in a crowded courtroom, but in a small, sterile side room of the Dubuque County Courthouse. Gary James, now thinner and graying after months in custody, sat across from the district attorney. He had decided to plead guilty to avoid a trial, but he wanted his final word. Gary James said in his official transcript, "I didn't pick her because she was Michelle. I picked her because she was there. I was walking for miles, my feet were hurting, and I had that knife in my pocket. When she asked me to help with those bags, it felt like she was ordering me around, like I was a servant. I just wanted the world to stop pushing me." On July 23, 2018, the gavel finally came down. The courtroom was packed with Michelle's family, neighbors from Iowa Street, and even Pam, the woman whose stolen knife had ended a life. The judge didn't mince words. Before pronouncing the sentence, he looked Gary James directly in the eye. Then the judge began, "Mr. James, you took a woman's life for $53 in a moment of perceived disrespect. You repaid her kindness with a level of brutality that this community will not soon forget. You claim Jesus knows your heart. Today, the state of Iowa knows your actions." Gary James was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Under Iowa law, life means exactly that. There is no backdoor, no good behavior release, and no second chances. Today, Gary James resides within the walls of the Iowa State Penitentiary, a maximum security facility in Fort Madison. He spends 23 hours a day in a cell, far from the bars and the streets where he spent his blood money. The apartment on Iowa Street has a new tenant, but the windows are still decorated. Michelle's best friend, Omalayo, and her sisters, Helen and Judith, founded a small community outreach program in her name. They focus on providing safe spaces for the elderly and resources for the transient population, turning Michelle's final act of kindness into a lasting legacy. This story is a haunting reminder that sometimes the most dangerous people aren't the ones hiding in the bushes, but the ones walking beside us carrying our groceries. Michelle Kenny died because she believed in the best of humanity. Does a life sentence without parole provide enough justice for a crime of this magnitude? Or should there be even stricter penalties for overkill cases? If this investigation moved you, please share it. Every share helps keep the memory of victims like Michelle alive and serves as a warning about the volatility of unaddressed rage. Thank you for watching. For more deep dives into the cases that changed the legal system, make sure to check out our previous investigation on the rookie cop who attacked a black judge. Until next time, stay safe and keep seeking the truth.